Since coming to power, returning to power last year, the Taliban have cracked down on the cultivation of poppies in Afghanistan. Now, what has that got to do with the price of spuds, says you? Well, Afghanistan's poppies are responsible for the bulk of the world's heroin. And without that supply, fears have been expressed that criminal gangs here in Ireland, for example, would seek to supplement their supplies, the heroin supplies, with synthetic drugs like fentanyl, for example. Well, Tony Duffin is with me. Tony is a drug and alcohol researcher. He is CEO of the Anna Liffey Drug Project. Tony, it's good to see you. And thanks a million for coming in studio. I'm good. So for people at home who haven't ever heard of it, fentanyl, what is it?
So fentanyl is a man-made opiate, an opioid. It's really potent. It has very legitimate uses in medicine, so in terms of painkilling, killing pain. So people who have cancer, perhaps, maybe on patches, people put those patches on and it eases their pain. Unfortunately, it is a drug that can be misused and or used for the purposes of getting high or whatever. And in America, particularly, and other jurisdictions, they've had a terrible time with overdose rates going up, with the likes of fentanyl, different types of fentanyls being used, and other drugs like xylazine and things like this. So there's a concern. It's not an issue in Ireland per se at the moment. I think it's fair to say that where the Taliban has banned and destroyed the crop to about 90%, as a researcher called David Mansfield, who did a piece of research with another organisation, and they had aerial shots of the poppy fields in Afghanistan, and they figured out that about 90% of the last crop was destroyed. That doesn't mean an immediate effect in Ireland or in Europe, but Afghanistan does provide 95% of heroin for Europe, the illicit trade of heroin. So, we're worried, we're concerned that, when that's taken out, it might seem like a good thing, that this is a good thing, but, something else will replace it. People will use other drugs. Those other drugs may be more potent. It could be fentanyls. It may not be, but it could be. And if that's the case, we're going to have difficulty.
And so whether it's fentanyl or other synthetic drugs, it's kind of a case of better the devil you know. Is it that if there's a need there, it will be filled, and you don't know what it gets filled with?
Yeah, look, I'm not saying that heroin is a better the devil you know. I mean, these are difficult drugs. These are dangerous drugs. Taking drugs is always a health risk, and we were talking about Electric Picnic earlier, and I know that my colleagues from the HSE are down there doing back of house testing or drug checking, and putting out warnings. And I suppose the reason I mention that is that we need to be doing stuff like this to make sure people are as safe as possible. So yeah, look. It's risky when drug trends change, and what we need would use the foresight that we have to plan and do things now so that we're ready to respond. Because, in the previous heroin shortage or drought we had in Ireland, we saw people seeking treatment, looking for treatment. So, more people looking for treatment. They couldn't get heroin, and some of those people wanted to get into treatment. And it was difficult to with the increase in people looking for treatment. So we need to be ready for things like that.
There's an opportunity here.
It can be, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There's also a huge risk about the overdose rates going up. And of course, it's when fentanyl enters the market more in a really significant way, like it did in America, what they found was that obviously they were cutting the fentanyls into opiates like heroin, then into things like cocaine, then into things like MDMA or synthetic cannabinoids. It entered the drug, all of the drug market, and that means that a lot more people are at risk of overdose.
And why? Like, what's I know this is kind of maybe a strange way to frame a question about something like this that does such harm, but what's the value, in terms from the dealers or the suppliers or the cartel's point of view, in cutting drugs right down through the supply chain with fentanyl?
I think they're trying to show that their drug gives you a good high or a good buzz or whatever, and it's better than somebody else's.
It just makes it more potent, whatever they happen to be taking, is it?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, there's obviously profit involved. Fentanyls are hugely powerful. You get all sorts of estimates from people, but they are very potent, as much as 600 times more potent than heroin. So you only need a little. You need a little of it to start cutting with other drugs to have an impact. So it's also unfortunately quite easy to see it sort of be transported and supplied. So that's a big issue. And I saw that in the Citizens Assembly. Certainly, my colleague in the Guards, Detective Chief Superintendent Seamus Boland, he said that from the Guard and National Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau, he said that we are satisfied that Irish criminal networks have been considering the supply of fentanyl into the Irish market. And that's really worrying. We know that Afghanistan, when we had that kind of foresight, we knew we were worried. People like myself and other people who are focused on this would be concerned. But when someone like Seamus says that, we need to be listening to what's being said, and we need to be planning. And certainly, more recently in 2020, I think it was 2020, the Health Research Board had a conference, and they looked at foresight, the idea of planning with foresight. And this is one of the examples where you go, look, we have a good idea that something is going to change here. We need to start planning. We need to look at the scenarios. We need to start planning. And I'm sure my colleagues in the HSE Department of Health and such are working on that.
And the fentanyl that ends up in the illicit drug trade and getting cut with all these other opioids and other drugs, MDMA and everything else you mentioned, where does that come from? Is it coming from kind of illicit chemical plants around the world? Or?
Yeah, so my understanding certainly is that South America is a really big supplier of fentanyls, and certainly from my understanding, these Irish cartels or drug gangs have been engaging with people over there.
So this would be the big South American or Mexican drug cartels.
Yeah, they supply America.
Yeah. And it would be the Irish then cartels would be looking to get in on that.
Yeah, look, I mean that's not my side of things, but that's my understanding.
I know, just trying to understand, how it might end up here. Yeah. But as you say, listen, there's possibly kind of opportunity in adversity, and it's people looking to detox or to enter drug treatment programs.
Sure.
And I mean, were that supply to be felt, that lack of supply to be felt overnight? And I know that there's kind of a supply chain. It'll be a time before we feel the impact of that poppy crop destruction. But were it to happen overnight, I mean, how would you assess the treatment options available for people now? To what extent do we have to expand them?
We have difficult. I mean, there is a demand on treatment places. We know that Ireland has a significant problem with drugs. I mean, there's all sorts of data out there that we can look to, and the drug treatment data is out there. But we know that it's difficult. I have a team on the ground who are working solidly with people who are working on their goals, who are working towards treatment, rehabilitation, housing, etc. But we know that there are difficulties in getting access.
So that is something that would need to be expanded, or should be expanded, as you say. Like, this is something you can plan for.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we do a lot in Ireland already.
Yeah.
And we can always look at what we're doing, and we can look for. There's always in the face of this, you can always say, more resources are needed. And certainly at Citizens Assembly, that has come up time and time again.
The Citizens Assembly, because I know you were there over the weekend as well, and what got a lot of headlines after Saturday, I think it was a kind of a description of people as kind of criminal lunatics, as an example of why we couldn't follow the so-called Portuguese model of drug liberalisation. You give us a sense. You were in the room. I mean, give us a sense of the kind of the nature of the conversation and
I'll try.
And where you think it is going.
From my perspective, anyway. Certainly, it was articulated. There was frustration in the room. I was there to talk about what we are doing, and we are working on a health diversion program for Ireland, and it's part of the government the program for government. So we are working on that. So I was describing what that was like and what we were working towards, which is essentially a guaranteed brief intervention, a health assessment, brief intervention for someone found in possession of drugs for personal use. At least one guaranteed intervention. But I guess I was asked, if it's already decided, what are we here doing? That was a question from the Citizens Assembly, and the answer to that was, this is what we're doing, but you can do more if you wish. You can go whichever route you want to. And I think it seems to me that from discussions that people are very interested in the ideas of health diversion rather than criminalising people who use drugs. They're looking at the people that have presented to them in the past, people with lived experience, and they're looking at what kind of response they would want for a loved one. So I think it's going to be interesting. October is when they vote on what they're going to recommend to government, and we'll all want to see what's going to happen in terms of those 99 people who are going to be voting on that.
Do you think? Could you feel that we're possibly at an inflection point in terms of how we treat drugs and drug users?
I think so. I mean, 2017, this current national drug strategy said we are going to have a health-led approach to drug use. So we know what we need to do. We need to do it. This is part of the problem, I suppose. It's about the implementation.
Paul Reid is quite critical of the
very
lack
of
implementation.
Yeah, let's be fair. He was pretty critical. But I think that we know what we need to do. We need to get on and do it.
Listen, it's always interesting talking, Tony, and thanks a million for coming into studio.